Welcome to the Agents of Innovation podcast, where we feature conversations with entrepreneurs, philanthropists, and artists. Okay, welcome back to the Agents of Innovation podcast. I'm your host, Francisco Gonzalez. And this is a special segment of the Agents of Innovation podcast because, as you know, in addition to the podcast, I have a company called Fearless Journeys. There's a lot of elements of Fearless Journeys, but one thing that gets the most attention for most people is our group trip, which has brought a lot of people together, including the two characters I have on the show today, Brian Graham and Kevin Comer. And they've both gone on multiple trips with Fearless Journeys. I've also been friends with them for much longer than that, at least a decade each of them. And Kevin is actually the most frequent traveler on these group trips. Both of these guys are literally, when they say frequent traveler, frequent flyer, like these guys go out of the box from that. So I'm going to introduce them both. Let's see. I'll start with Kevin here first. Okay. Kevin, introduce yourself to our audience. Maybe tell us where you're from and what keeps you busy, and maybe throw in maybe about how many countries you think you've been to.
Great. Well, I'm Kevin Comer. I live in St. Petersburg, Florida, which is by Tampa. So if you're a Bucks fan or a Rays fan, that's where we're at. I live here now. My parents moved here when I was 5 from Illinois. So except when I've been traveling about, I've been in St. Pete ever since then. I'm a lawyer. I went to both University of Florida undergrad and law school. Then I got a Dutch law degree and a master's program in Leiden in the Netherlands. And after then, I worked in both London and Shanghai at different companies. Then I came back to Florida, and I'm a lawyer. I do a lot of nonprofit work, a lot of commercial bankruptcy, reorganization. Lately, I've been working for a new company that does both prison security and school security in an attempt to forestall school shootings and also to try to stop human trafficking. So we've got several clients in states across the Southeast, and I'm also trying to develop networks in Latin America to help us down there to try to get the root of the problem. I don't even know how many countries I've been to, probably about 40. I was going to go to South Korea last month, but it turns out when I got to the airport to get on the plane to go to South Korea, I didn't have a visa, so I couldn't actually go. I didn't do my research, so I missed the visa requirement. So I had to cancel that flight and fly to Hong Kong instead. But that was a couple of hours before the flight, arriving at an airport in Dubai at 2 o'clock in the morning and discovering that I couldn't actually get on the plane I had a ticket for.
So see, for those of you listening or watching this at home, and by the way, if you're just listening, we also will put this on YouTube, so you could actually switch over and watch us on YouTube. But, these are very experienced travelers. And even a super experienced traveler, 40 plus countries, can make these kind of mistakes of like not getting a visa. Also, it might also be emblematic that Kevin traveled a lot and probably like a trip doesn't seem like as big a deal for maybe like somebody who travels once a year. Like they've probably like prepared their whole like months and months in advance for something where you're just jetting on planes. Oh, boop! I forgot about that one. But anyway, let's now introduce Brian Graham. Brian, where are you from? And what keeps you busy? And maybe you can remember how many countries you've been to.
So I am Brian Graham. I'm from Clay County, Florida. I'm a 6th-generation Floridian. I didn't come carpet back down here like Kevin, but we're welcome, Kevin. We love having visitors and residents come to Florida.
To be fair, Kevin has been in Florida probably longer than 80% of Floridians.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. We've grown. I mean, it's so crazy from when I was a kid. I mean, Florida has grown drastically. The changes that we've seen in this state are just incredible, and mostly for the good. I have kind of picked up a love for traveling. My father traveled a lot, and I kind of picked it up from him. He liked to travel, and I kind of took it to maybe a bit of an extreme, next level. And so far, I've been to 38 countries. And so Working on more. I've got a bunch planned still this year that I plan to really make that number jump by quite a bit this year. And I am a political consultant. I own my own company, and I consult with state representatives, state senators, congressmen throughout the country.
That's great. Well, so both of you guys have me beat in numbers, and to be honest with you, I thought you had me beat by a lot more. But I'm at 34, and every time I think I'm going to catch Brian or Kevin, as Brian just mentioned, he just keeps outpacing even faster and more travel. So one of the reasons we're doing this episode,
I have 14 more planned this year.
yeah,
14
see, that's
more.
insane.
Yeah.
I'm going to be in a few countries this year, but as far as I know, two new ones to me, and so okay, that might get me to 36 this year, and that's not even to your current 38 number. Then you've got 14 planned, 14
Well,
new countries planned.
yeah, 14 new. So the problem here is that, when you travel a lot like we do, right? I think that the three of us are probably people that don't just go into a country and go to one city, spend a day or two, and then leave. We kind of spend time there, days, weeks. We travel the whole country. We want to see different cities. It's usually not just one city, right? I mean, we're just not the one city kind of guys. It's usually like, oh, well, let's go see the second largest city. Let's see the largest city. Let's see the capital. Let's go. We kind of like to peruse around that country, so we take our time. So it's harder to rack up numbers. Also, it's harder when you leave the country after spending a week or two, and you say, "Man, I want to go back and look at the other part of that country," like Francisco has done with Guatemala. Gosh, I don't know, 20 times, a
Yeah,
lot.
it's basically
Yeah,
my second home. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I think you get on a really good point there because, we can build this checklist of like, oh, I want to go to this country, that country. Look, sometimes, and when you're racking up states, right? I've been to 48 states, and when you're racking up states, sometimes you're like, oh, like the very first time I went to Vermont, I literally like, I was in Dartmouth, right on the border in New
right.
Hampshire, and I was like, man, I could just like 10-minute drive, I could just like say I went to Vermont, and I did. And that visit was really, I literally drove in and drove out. Like, that wasn't, did I really visit Vermont? No, I have since been back to Vermont, and it was wonderful. And by the way, and I still have only seen a little bit of it, but I could say at least I've been there. But I think that's the thing. And, yeah, we can do that when we're like, when something's on the way somewhere, and we could do that. But really, I think as you travel more, and you experience the world more, kind of like you said, you want to like slow down a little bit more, experience the culture, the food, the people, go to different parts, see the countryside versus the city, all these sorts of things, spend the time there. That's more valuable. I know, Kevin, I've witnessed this with some of your travel where, man, and also I think the three of us are in very fortunate positions where there's a lot of parts of our work that we can do remotely from anywhere,
Right.
whether it's taking calls or just keeping up with people, and so you can kind of blend this like, hey, I'm gonna go work from the Netherlands this week, right? And I'll get a picture from Kevin of him like taking an afternoon kayak in between meetings, something like that, right? So like it's I think that's what's cool. It's like you can make the world your office in some ways.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really works out well. I know I've seen Kevin on our trips have to leave the table and go handle some work. So,
Yeah.
busy man over there. But I still haven't done the Emirates suites like Kevin has with the shower at 30,000 feet. So he does have that one on me.
It's amazing. I will say, last month I used a whole bunch of credit card points, of which apparently I'm very good at using, to book a round the world trip in first class. So,
Wow, that was that also on Emirates?
so I flew Air France from New York to Paris, then Emirates from Paris to Dubai, and then I was supposed to fly Emirates to South Korea, but that didn't happen. So I canceled that ticket and found an open award seat in first class to Hong Kong. So I went to Hong Kong, then went from Hong Kong to Japan, and then flew Japan Airlines first class back from Tokyo back to Chicago. Japan Airlines first class is unbelievable. I was the only passenger in first class, and I had 3 flight attendants all to myself. That was, I mean, it was
Bless
So
them.
great.
I don't want you to elaborate on that.
No, no, I mean, like, they had nothing to do but look after me, and it was great. Um, they made my bed, they tucked me in. When I woke up, they, showed me the stars in the sky as we were flying over the Pacific. And at the end,
Wow.
I told them it was the first time I'd ever flown on Japan Airlines. So right when we were getting ready to land, they made me a cake that said, first flight Japan Airlines, and wrote me a note talking about, oh, Mr. Comer, we loved having you on here. We can't wait for you to fly Japan Airlines again. Come back and see us.
That's amazing. So let's go back to so this all happened about a month ago, Kevin?
Yes.
Okay, but wasn't it about a year ago that you flew on Emirates and you had one of those like it was almost like a private suite with like
Mhm.
you could and then you could go and take a shower on an airplane.
Yes.
Please tell us about that.
So the way it works on Emirates is they have a shower. It's a shower suite. You can see the pictures online. It's just like it looks like online. You talk to the flight attendant about, do you want to take a shower? And I think there are about a dozen seats in Emirates on first class. Normally only 2 or no, it's almost never full. So you normally only have 4 or 5 passengers anyway. I was the only passenger on one of the flights that actually took the shower. But there they will, you get pajamas and slippers. They give you like this really nice bag to put all your clothes in. Once you have a 30-minute period in the shower, which in my case I'm sure could have been longer since I was the only one.
30 minutes. Like that's a long shower.
Well, I mean, like you get 30 minutes in the shower room, but there's 5 minutes of hot water,
Okay.
and then you can turn it on and off, and it'll show you how much is left. And you just go in there and you take a shower, and they have these really fancy bath products you can use. I like it, and there's a bench in the shower, so you can sit down and just let the water come down on you. Knowing that you're 35,000 feet in the air and you're taking a shower, I always take as much time as I can in there. When I go out, they've got a little spa area set up where there's fresh fruit and hot tea you can drink, and
Are there massages on board?
I've never tried to arrange that. I probably could if I asked, but
But they have them available. Is what
yes.
you're saying.
Oh
Yeah,
yes,
that's amazing. I mean, so basically like a spa on a plane.
yes. And
It's
the
it's a miss.
Emirates is again. I cannot afford $10,000 for a 7-hour flight on Emirates. I book all of these using credit card points. So I mean, this
Yeah,
is
that's the
very
thing.
this is something like a normal person can do if they plan ahead, and not having it cost that much.
That's amazing. And the other thing is, we had one of the featured innovators in the Fearless Journeys community, Alan Walton. I've had him on the podcast, many years ago. He has this company called Spy Guy, which is products he sells through e-commerce, kind of surveillance and counter surveillance products. But he has all these, he is a business owner, and he has all of these other business, owner friends, all these entrepreneur friends.
Yeah.
And started realizing, like, obviously we all, whatever credit cards we have for personal use, right? We all rack up, credit card points. But when you're a business owner, boy, some businesses can really rack up. I mean, just if you're putting a lot of money on the cards,
Yes.
you could really rack up a lot of credit card points that really are, in some cases, free because these are your business expenses, and so it's not like you're taking money. I mean, you're taking money out of your business, but it's the cost of business, right? It's the cost of doing business, and you can get these points. And so if business owners, entrepreneurs are really smart about the kind of card they get and how they use them, how they apply the points, they can really do these things. And by the way, we all have choices, right? Everything in life is trade-offs. So, like, actually, I'm going to admit something. I've actually never flown first class in my life on an airplane, and I just haven't really considered it too much. But I could do that. But sometimes when I'm thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, but like if I use all those points here, like that could be other places. I'm like, I could go on just a plane. Now I might upgrade to a business class seat or a nicer seat rather than like the economy. And I don't think it counts to say I did first class on Spirit Airlines. But man, those big front seats, the big front seats are nice.
I know.
It changes your total experience. Which so I imagine actually having like real first class, especially on Emirates, I mean, that just has to change. How does that? How has I know both of you guys fly first class a lot when you get a chance. Once you go first class, and you've done it more and more, I mean, what? How does that change your travel experience, and how does it also change the idea of sitting in economy for you?
Well, first off, you're ruined. Okay, you're
Yes.
ruined.
Oh yes.
You, you after you have the nice seats and the food and the wine and you just when you sit in economy, it's just not the same. You're just not as comfortable because the whole time you're going, man, I could have spent a little more money or used a few more points and upgraded. But I'll say this, you know, um, when you're considering on how you're going to fly, and when we were talking about the credit cards, you need to consider where you want to go.
Yes.
So if you want to go to kind of unique spots around the world, you may be better off with a Capital One
Hmm.
or a Chase Sapphire card or one of those cards where you can transfer those points to any airline. You set up
Hmm.
an account with those airlines, and you can transfer your points to any airline in the world. I'm a little different. I'm kind of a Delta guy, and they fly to a lot of places around the world, obviously, and they have partner airlines that you can utilize. But I'm a Delta Diamond, and that with that status, I almost always get upgraded for free to first class, at least on domestic flights. And then on foreign flights, sometimes I will, not often anymore. It used to be more often, but now I have to use points and upgrades that you get via your credit card spending. And
Yes.
so you're right. If you're smart about it, even someone that doesn't own their own business, they could put virtually all of their expenditures on a credit card that gets them travel points, right? Their water bills, their electric bills, their
Yes.
cell phone bills. I mean, if you think about every bill you have, you put it on one credit card that you get points on, and you utilize that card to not only get status with airlines, which the status gets you upgrades for free, but you also get the points. So you really got to consider that. Take that into account. Don't use your debit card. You get nothing from that.
No.
Don't use your checking account. You get nothing from that. Use the card with the points. Get the
Yes.
status. Spend the $100 a year on the on the credit card fee and travel. Enjoy life. Get out there. So
And you
that
could
that
do
is one
that,
of my
and for those listening who want to be fiscally responsible, but I don't want to use credit cards. But you can do that if you pay those credit cards off every month, and
right,
don't,
and
Exactly.
it
don't
costs you
don't let
nothing.
that back up. Yeah.
Yeah, it costs you nothing. And usually with these airline credit cards, like for instance with Delta, every dollar you spend gets you closer to like status, gold
Mhm.
status, platinum status, diamond status. And as you move up that ladder, and the more you spend on your credit card, the more freebies you get. So it really pays for itself. And usually with these credit cards, you also get free bags.
Yes.
So that's another thing that kind of pays for itself. So you save money by doing that. I virtually
And
never
sometimes you
pay.
get, yeah, sometimes you get little things like maybe get to the airport and there's a long line,
Right.
for checking a bag or something. And then, I mean, I had this happen with one airline that I have a card with, and they were like, oh, and I was just like, man, I actually didn't need to check a bag. I had a carry on, but because I had booked the ticket as a one way, they wanted to see something, like they wanted to see proof of, I forget what it was,
Yeah. On the
or maybe it was in Colombia and they wanted to see like my little exit thing, right? They like have to visually see something. Um, and I told the lady, hey, I don't even have to check any bags. I just need somebody. Oh, you don't? Do you have a credit card with us? Yes. Come right here. Right, right to the front of the line. So yeah, little things like that, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
I was talking to a friend of mine this week about this because he likes to travel a lot to Latin America. He likes,
Hmm.
Central America especially. I just got back from Nicaragua actually yesterday, day before. Anyways, Thursday I got back, and so the I was chatting with him and I said, look, if really it's Latin America you want, go with Spirit. I mean, they have
Yeah.
the best direct flights. We love direct flights. We do. That's
Yes.
why sometimes I fly Spirit or Frontier or whatever. The airline, it doesn't matter. But whatever airline has a direct flight, sometimes I'll go for that, even if it's a discount airline. And if, Spirit does have those front seats that you can purchase for $100. and that makes a world of difference. They're soft seats, they're very wide,
Yeah.
they're cushioned. You get free drinks and food and stuff. It's worth it. You also get free checked bags and stuff when you buy those seats, so they kind of pay for themselves in a way. You really don't pay that much more. So yeah, I was just so all these things are factors that you need to consider when you're thinking about traveling or getting a travel credit card. I told my buddy, I said, look, I advise you just get the Spirit card, spend money on that, rack up points and status with that, because even Spirit now has status, guys. They have status. And if you get a certain status, you get free bags.
Status on Spirit, all of
Hey,
our
man,
rifles.
hey, freebie. We
Well,
love a deal. We love a deal, my man.
We do.
you're right, Brian, because the fact how many times I went to Guatemala and
Yeah,
going out of Fort Lauderdale, like actually I started going Spirit only for the main reason that they were the only nonstop flight from
correct.
Fort
Yeah.
Lauderdale to Guatemala. Why would you do anything else? And then I was like, I'm not
Well,
knock
and they're
on wood.
cheap.
Yeah, knocking on wood
Yeah,
here that I've actually never had an issue on Spirit, right? That's not true for
right.
everybody. So I do always caution, the ones that are budget airlines, you just got to prepare that sometimes they
Yeah.
don't have as many planes, they don't have as many things, right? So sometimes if there's like an issue that is even a little bit out of their control, like weather or something, they have less backup plans. Let's put it that way, right? That's why they're budget. But anyway, yeah. And then after a while, I started racking up just points by using them. Then I was like, I was on, how many times I was on a Spirit flight that they're like, what about, they always try to sell you on the credit cards, and I always just
Hmm.
ignore those announcements. And then one day I was kind of like paying attention, and I was like, gosh, that seems like I would really benefit from that. Let's just try it for one
Yeah.
year, and then you started noticing, yeah, not only do you like your points go up. So when I actually got that card, there was like a period of almost the last 2 years that I don't even, I've never actually paid for a flight on Spirit because my points always accumulate more,
Hmm.
just enough to just like use the points to book the flight. And especially if you're, if you book the flight early enough, the point level is really low when you're booking. And then yeah, maybe I'll upgrade, pay an extra $50 or $80 for a big front seat, whatever it is. But anyway, yeah. So these things just kind of accumulate, and if you look at where you are flying out of primarily, like your market, maybe it's Miami, maybe it's Jacksonville, maybe it's Atlanta, like whatever. What are the main airlines out of there, right? And where do they have the most routes? That might be something for you to think about as well.
Right.
Correct. Absolutely. But yeah,
And
I
okay, so
virtually never pay for first class, I don't pay much for it. I could get a free ticket and then upgrade, pay my way to first class, or that's what I do with like Spirit. I went to Nicaragua. I used 5,000 points, I think, and I paid $78 in fees, and then I paid $100 ish each way for the big front seat, but that also included my bag, so it kind of paid for
yeah,
itself.
bag, they give you
It
drinks,
wasn't
like
much more. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, they take care of you, especially like on Spirit. I think there's only 8 big front seats, so
You're right. Yeah, yeah. It's only 8.
it's yeah, I mean, they're really taking care of those first 8 customers more than anybody
Yeah.
else. Well, so look, this sort of conversation I wanted to record kind of came about a little bit because Brian and I a couple of weeks ago just happened to have a quick call about something that lasted almost an hour, and I don't think this should have been a podcast. We started talking about he was talking about little tips and tricks on this and that and whatever, and I said, man, this would be really great to learn from like really experienced travelers like you guys. So also though, I told him, there's you guys have some great stories. And Kevin, I've known Kevin, I don't know, maybe 15 years at this point.
Probably, yeah.
And he's been on a bunch of Fearless Journeys trips. I've traveled with Kevin a lot, even on non-Fearless Journeys trips. And I feel like I know him well enough. And then we had actually a Fearless Journeys dinner in Miami in October with like 15 people around the table. And one of the questions I just asked everybody, just kind of as an icebreaker question, was, tell me about your like, I can't remember how I put it, something like your most memorable travel experience, or I don't know if I said good, bad, whatever. I don't know. Kevin, do you remember? I want to get to the story that you shared with us that night
I don't remember.
because
Which one was it?
I never heard this story, Kevin. Oh, well, let me just remind you. Let's just say we've all been on airplanes.
Uh huh.
Many times we sit in the emergency exit row, and
Oh, yes.
there's always a question that the flight attendants will have to ask you. They verbally need a yes. Are
Yes.
you willing to assist uh, and help if there's an emergency? Are you willing to open that door if there's an emergency? Yes. And
Yes.
you get the extra leg room, right?
Yes.
And you probably never think you're going to have to open the emergency exit door. But I just discovered in October that Kevin once was on a plane where he was sitting in the emergency exit row, and you could tell the rest of the story.
Yes. So I was in South Africa. This is 15 years ago. Uh, Visiting a girl I was dating at the time, and we were flying from Johannesburg to Gaborone, which is in Botswana. And it was just a normal 737. It wasn't that crowded. I've forgotten what airline it was. It was just an hour and a half flight on a sunny day, and we got ready to land. And we landed just normally, and then suddenly, a few seconds, into the landing, it started getting like bumpy, and it got progressively bumpier. And we were looking out the window, and we realized that we weren't on the runway anymore. In fact, we weren't at the airport anymore. So what had happened is that the pilot had misjudged the landing, and we went past the runway to land. So we were just going through this field and rolling, and eventually we came to a stop, and people started noticing something was wrong, and people started getting upset. And then the flight attendants huddled together, and then they started saying, "Okay, we need to evacuate. We need to evacuate." And I was sitting in the exit row with the girl, and they came up to me and said, "Okay, you need to pull this lever and get out, and help people get out. Pull the lever, and then like the slide will come down." I'm like, "Okay." And so pulled the lever down. It took a lot of force. This is not something, you need a bunch of strength to do this. The door popped open, the slide came down. It took a few seconds, came down to the ground. I was just looking. It was just a field. It didn't look anything too concerning. But then I heard someone screaming, "There are crocodiles there. We need to watch out. There are crocodiles in the field." I'm like, okay, well, I guess we'll see what happens next. So I helped a couple people slide down, then I slid down, and then we saw this group of trees. So we went and ran over to the trees because we didn't know what was going on, and the ground was completely dry. So there were not, in fact, any crocodiles running around. So everyone got off and evacuated, and eventually we all came around to the tree, this group of trees, and we were all sitting and looking at the plane, which is just sitting there in a field, and just sitting there. And a couple of minutes later, these Range Rovers came up from the airport, and we talked to the pilot and saying, "Yeah, I know we missed the runway." He's like, "Okay, well, you need to walk back to the airport." So we didn't even get into the Range Rovers. We had to walk back to the airport. But it wasn't that far. It was a couple miles. It took us 15 or 20 minutes. So we just walked back to the airport, and a couple of days later, they brought us our bags.
So the bags that like your carry-on bags that don't stay on the plane.
And nobody took their carry-on bags. I was impressed. We all just, that I remember, I didn't.
Yeah, so you just went back to the airport and somehow got your bags.
Yeah, a couple days later. It took
A couple days later, okay.
Yes.
That's amazing. And what's amazing is I had never heard this story before. Like to me, so but Kevin, I think to wrap this story up,
Uh-huh.
now you get on a lot of flights. And do you ever sit in the emergency exit row?
Oh, on United all the time because I get upgraded. Because one of the things, I'm more of a Star Alliance guy with United. I know Brian's a Delta guy. But when at the lowest level of United status, you can upgrade to an exit row seat the day before the flight.
Now, when the flight attendant comes around and asks you, "Are you willing to assist and help? Should there be an emergency exit?" Do you have any particular response to that?
I mean, sometimes they say, "Oh yeah, I've done it before," and sometimes I'll get a look because they think I'm serious. Like, "Yeah, I've done it before. Don't worry."
I've been here. You probably haven't. Okay, so Brian, that was a pretty wild story by Kevin. Even hearing it a second time. Still, Brian, do you have any interesting travel stories that you'd like to share that maybe?
I do. I do, and everyone on our Fearless Journeys group texts knows about this story because I texted them because I was a bit angry that evening. I was in Zimbabwe.
Interesting that your story also takes place on the same continent.
Yeah, right.
Kevin's.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, basically, what happens is everything in that region revolves around South Africa. So you go to South Africa, Johannesburg, as Kevin did, and you spoke out from Johannesburg to the other countries. Is kind of how that works. That's kind of like the hub airport, right?
Right.
So I'm in Zimbabwe. I'd spent the night in Bulawayo, Zimbabwe. I had visited, I woke up, I visited some of the parks that day, drove around. I was trying to find some rhinoceros, but I was unsuccessful in that endeavor. And then I drove from Bulawayo to Victoria Falls, the largest waterfall in the world. Wanted to see that. Um, so I spent the day touring a park and then drove. I drove myself. I rented a vehicle there, an SUV. And then I drove to Victoria Falls. It's a several hours drive. It took a lot longer than it was predicted. That is one thing you will find in Africa is anything that is on the Google. It's not true. It's going to be a lot longer because you don't drive the speed limit there. You have to drive a lot slower because you have to dodge potholes. So you're dodging potholes the whole time. And when I talk about potholes, I'm not talking about small potholes. I'm talking about potholes that could eat your entire vehicle. If you go very fast, your car will be ruined, and you'll be paying a pretty penny when you try to turn that ruined car back in. So I get to Victoria Falls, and it's like 9:30 at night. The border closes at 10 o'clock. Okay, I learned the border closes at 10 o'clock. So it's like 9:30. I go in, I do the paperwork, I leave Zimbabwe, pay the fee to cross the bridge. There's an old bridge there that the British built that you cross in between Zimbabwe and Zambia, which is the other side of Victoria Falls, at the border of the country. And so I crossed over, and it's maybe a few kilometers in between the two. You got to cross the bridge, and there's kind of like this area that's all fenced in. You kind of drive to get to the next stop, so you can check in for border control. I come to a fence. There's a fence. I just park the car. I just kind of put the car in park and wait. And I assume maybe they're busy. They're just controlling the crowd. Yeah, maybe that's what's going on here. I waited for probably 10 minutes, and then another car came behind me. It was a taxi, and he started honking and screaming, and I thought, oh no, he seems upset, not with me, but maybe with the border situation. And so then I see a guard approaching after he's caused a fit. He's gotten out, he went to the fence, guard comes out, and I'm thinking, oh boy, this is going to be special. So I get out too, because they waved at me, and they told me that the border was closed. They closed early on that day. So I said, well, what do I do? I've already called my hotel while I was en route. This is not a joke. I called the hotel to tell them I will be there. I know the restaurant closes at 10, but I'd like for you to cook me a steak and a bottle of wine and put it in my room. But this is not a joke. I did have a steak and a bottle of wine in my room waiting on me. And so I'm at the border, and I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, it's closed. Well, how do you, number one, you really close a border with people in the middle? Well, yes, they do. And not only do you close it early just because they felt like it. So here I am, stuck in the middle between Zimbabwe and Zambia at 9:45 at night, and they've decided to close the border early. So I called the hotel, and the hotel said, oh, no, they close at 10. I said, no, they don't. They're closed now. So then the hotel manager, they tried to solve the problem. They tried to call people they knew. No one would open it back up. I guess the manager had left. That was that. It's closed. Nothing you can do. So there's no bathroom. There's no food. There's no drink. So I said, okay, well, I guess I'll make the best of this. I'm going to go out and walk on that bridge and just look at the waterfall. I go over there, and then I get threatened with, rifles to get back in my car, and that I'm going to be arrested. So that was a bad idea. So I decided to then get back in my car. So he informed me that I could do nothing except stay in my car or near my car.
Until when?
Until 8 o'clock in the morning. So that is where I spent the night, in my car. I just
So let me
left
ask
the
you
car
something.
on.
What is this? You're on a road.
I'm
That's
on like
kind
a
of
road that is, you've got essentially it's
Is it kind of
Zimbabwe
almost like
and
between two?
Zambia, right?
Is
And
it
there's
kind of
almost like
almost
a
like
gray area in between that's kind of
yeah?
fenced in between the countries, right? But there's a waterfall and the bridge that connects. And so I'm over here, but there's a a fenced in road that comes to an end. So you can imagine I'm surrounded by fences on a road. It gets better. The taxi then gets out, the driver gets out, he lays on the ground to sleep, and a pregnant woman gets out who's his passenger, and she also is sleeping on the ground. So I'm there with the
So it's the
taxi.
two. It's the you the
They're
two
sleeping,
cars.
and then I'm in my SUV, and I just leave the power on. Yeah, I turned it on. It was a diesel. I just left that baby on, turned on the AC, and locked the doors and fell asleep. And
Unbelievable.
that is where I spent my night. My first night in, I guess, technically in Zambia, because I was across the bridge. So in
Th-
Zambia.
This reminds me of that movie with Tom Hanks or something. Was it The Terminal or something? And he's kind of stuck
Yes.
between can't go
Mhm.
this way,
Yeah,
can't go that way. But
yeah.
yeah, that's
So
really
then
wild.
so they open it up first thing in the morning, right? When they open up, I go in, and I'm obviously not in a good mood. Um, and the person who signs you into Zambia, stamps your passport, is late. They've not arrived yet. So they said, "Oh, you can wait." I said, "Look, I can't wait. I've got, um, I've got my, I've got, I've got a tour today, a safari. I've got to go." So then I left without even getting a stamp and went immediately back. Didn't even get to go to my hotel. Didn't get to shower. And anyone that knows me knows that I'm like a big clean shower person. I'll take an hour shower if I can, Kevin. I mean, like, you know, 5 minutes ain't gonna do it for me. Um,
Same.
so I leave. I go back. I meet my guide for my safari, and I go on a safari that day. I was not the happiest camper. And I forgot to say, when I asked them when they closed the border early, it's 9:45, getting close to 10 o'clock at that point, and I'm up there arguing with the guys. They're waiting. It gets past 10 o'clock. Okay, it gets past 10. So I said, well, wait a minute. Well, can't I just go back to Zimbabwe? Oh no, it's past 10 o'clock. They've closed now. I said, well, why didn't you tell me that? You know, 10 minutes ago when we were arguing about getting this border opened. No, they withheld that information. So Zimbabwe closed behind me. So I was stuck in the middle. That's why I was stuck in the middle. I forgot to tell you why I was actually stuck. It didn't go back because I'm sure someone would wonder, why didn't you go back? I didn't go back because it just happened at the perfect time where they had delayed long enough saying, oh, let's see if we can find the manager. We'll see if we can open this up. I'm sitting there with $100 bills trying to bribe them. I mean, because sometimes in those countries that works.
Oh,
It does. I mean, it does work.
I'm
And so
surprised it didn't work in this case,
I,
actually.
I'm shocked too. I was ready. I was like, you will open this gate. Nope, they will not open that gate, even for $100, which is quite kind of surprising.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
they
Yeah,
were
and
even gonna.
luckily nobody came and robbed you in the middle of the night. Sleeping in your car.
No, what because they were saying that maybe they could. Obviously, after I showed them the money, they said, well, maybe we could let you in, but we'll keep your passport, and you have to come back. And I thought, oh, this is a horrible idea.
yes, that is a
Horrible
horrible
idea.
idea.
I'm not going away from my passport. That's a horrible, horrible idea.
Okay,
So
so this is a good segue. Let's
yeah,
let's talk about passports. There's a good chunk of the American population that doesn't have a passport now.
yeah,
I should use ChatGPT here because I think it's actually gotten like there used to be a point not that long ago where like I think it was like less than 20% or something of Americans had a passport. Now actually I think more than 50% have a passport. I don't know. That might be emblematic of recent times where people are like, maybe I need to get out of the country.
yeah.
But
It's all those
I
hot deals on Spirit,
Yeah, I
Francisco.
mean,
So people are seeing that and going,
go to
wow,
Guatemala.
$39, I can go to Guatemala.
Yeah, well, so here's the thing. I thought about this a few years ago because when we went to take our very first Fearless Journeys group trip. I was already down in Guatemala, and the group trip was to Guatemala. Brian, you came on that first one. Kevin, you
Mm-hmm.
came on the next
Yeah.
one.
Right.
But on the first one, we had a great group, and But two of the travelers, uh, I'm just going to name them, Trevor and Jerome, actually, uh, I don't know, a month or so before the trip, informed me after they'd already like signed up for the trip, paid like their first two payments, and they were like, "Oh man, I just looked, my passport expires before the trip, or expired 2 years ago." And look, a little bit was this was 2021. No, almost nobody did international travel in 2020, and then who knows, you may just not have taken a trip even in 2019, like most people. So they just kind of were out of the sync of using it, and then realized, most passports expire after 10 years, and they just didn't keep track of it. And also, a lot of countries, even if your passport's not expired, but it has less than 6 months,
Yes.
actually won't allow you in. It just depends on the country, but many of them will not let you in unless you have at least 6 months on your passport. Anyway, just kind of those were 2 points where made me think, wow, people really, need to pay attention to stuff, and also more people just need to have a passport. Like so many people I talk, oh, I just never got around to getting one. Like I don't know when I'm going to travel, and it's so funny because I got a passport. My very first time going out of the country was when I was in college, and I was in the year 2000 actually, and I went to London, Paris, and Spain. I was doing a study abroad in Spain, and I had that passport for like 10 years, and I went out of the country, you know, few more times in those 10 years. Wasn't like a lot, it was every couple of years or something. And then I remember talking to somebody. It was like my passport had actually expired, but I had no plans to go out of the country. So just didn't renew it. And I remember somebody said, Francisco, you should always have a good passport. You just never know when someone's going to invite you to Paris for the weekend or something, right? And I laughed. I laughed. But then I was like, you
Sure.
know what? That's a good point. So somewhere along within that next couple of months, I renewed my passport just to have it. And then it's funny because I actually ended up not going on this trip, but literally within a couple of months of renewing that passport, I mean, this is like something like 2012 or something, somewhere around that period. I actually got offered like a whole free flight to Israel, like a whole free trip to Israel. Like a group was going to pay for me to go. And the only reason I didn't go is I really had a I had two serious work conflicts. If it was one conflict, I think I would have gotten out of it, but it was like two within that week, and it was like this is going to be too complicated. Um, and that made me think, wow, that person was right. Like, look at this. I didn't see this Israel trip coming, and the Israel trip was like a month from when I was invited. Like it was like very very short time period. And no, so this can happen. But everybody should always have a passport, at least 6 months on it. But Brian, in talking to you about these stories, and by the way, for the audience, Trevor and Jerome both got on that trip, and this is what they did. And this was a little bit because it was during COVID, and so many passports were in backlog because all these government offices were shut down, and there wasn't as many bureaucrats basically processing them, so they were taking super super long. But somebody had told me, somebody that had come down and hiked a volcano with me in Guatemala earlier that summer, this happened to him. And he actually was in Houston, and he went to the uh, what is it? The State Department has a handful of offices around the country, passport offices, where you can actually go to their office. And he got like, he said, here's what he did. He had to already have his flight booked, even though he didn't have his passport renewed. And then it was some weird timeline, like 1 or 2 weeks before the trip, call these passport offices, get an appointment, an in-person appointment. The appointment would be about 72 hours before the trip, before the flight took off. And then, so he did it, and he went to the Houston one, got the appointment, did all the paperwork. They were processing it for a few hours. He came back a few hours later, and there was his passport with less than 3 days before an international trip that his flight was already booked. So a little nerve wracking, right? Um, so Jerome kind of did this. He had some family in Atlanta. He went from Jacksonville to Atlanta to get that. And then Trevor was in Tampa, which was like a little bit of a dead zone for these. So you either got to go to Miami or maybe Atlanta or maybe New Orleans. Well, the Miami and Atlanta offices didn't have any appointments for the days he needed an appointment in time for his trip. So the closest one was New Orleans. And
Hey.
Trevor is a very persistent guy, and he drove all the way to from Tampa to New Orleans. Like I was like, why don't you just fly? Uh, but anyway, he drove all the way from Tampa to New Orleans, like in the middle of the night, gets there in the morning, goes in, does his appointment in the morning, then goes back to his car, sleeps in the parking lot for a couple hours while he's waiting for them to process it, gets his new passport, drives all the way back to Tampa. I mean, we're talking like what? That's like a 10 or 12 hour drive.
Yeah,
And
it is.
and then 2 or 3 days later, it was getting on a flight to come to Guatemala and made it on our trip, on our very first group trip. And so later, I awarded Kevin an award that I created on the spot because Kevin was living in St. Pete and went over to Orlando for a Spirit flight because they had a nonstop flight
Hmm.
to Guatemala. And unfortunately, you and Travis was supposed to be on that flight, but the flight was
Yes.
canceled, I think, due to weather.
Hmm.
And so, but Kevin was like, "I'm not going to give up on going to Guatemala. I'm going to miss this whole first day." And he didn't want to like trust Spirit like the next day. I don't even know if there was like there might not even have been
There
flights,
wasn't
right?
a direct flight the next day.
Yeah. So I think what you did, right? Tell us what you did.
So I ended up booking a flight. So I live in Tampa. I ended up booking a flight from Miami to Guatemala City on Aeromexico that went through Mexico City. It left at 6 o'clock in the morning on Sunday. So
From Miami.
yeah, from Miami, and this was Saturday. So I got up, and this was also the day of the final, the Saturday of the Final Four. So I went and had a big dinner, and then I watched the Final Four, the men's basketball Final Four, and took a nap, and then got up about 1 o'clock in the morning, and then drove to Miami to get on the flight. But there was something funny happened when I got there. Like, so I went in to check into the Aeromexico flight, and they couldn't find my reservation.
Uh,
So then I had it on, I had a smartphone, so I showed it to him, like, and then they looked some more, and then what had happened is my last name is Comer, which is the Spanish verb for to eat. So, like, their ticketing system had automatically translated my last name, so I had a ticket under Kevin to eat, and that's why they couldn't find my ticket.
that is amazing. That's a well. Talk about lost in translation.
Yes. So they eventually, gave me a ticket under my actual name, and
Did they give you a meal too?
no, no, I like Aeromexico a lot. If you ever have the chance to fly Aeromexico, that is a very good airline.
You're a
I
Delta partner, Kevin. I mean, come on.
yeah, I had very good experiences on Aeromexico, so I eventually made it to Guatemala
So
City.
just to tell me, you were supposed to leave on Saturday morning, right?
Yes,
To come from Orlando to Guatemala with the meet up with the rest of the group,
at like three
right?
o'clock in the afternoon. Yeah,
Yeah, and do dinner there, and then the next day we did the coffee farm tour.
right.
Meanwhile, Sunday you get up at 1 in the morning in Tampa. You drive to Miami. It's like about a 4 hour drive,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
To the airport. Then there's this hiccup with the Comarin last name, uh, and, um, and but you get on the Aeromexico flight to Mexico City. You were
Yes,
doing a flight where it connected to Mexico City, and then you got a connecting flight to Guatemala because apparently this was last minute, and these were the only flights available.
exactly. Yeah.
And I remember we came back from going on this coffee farm tour, just a little bit outside Guatemala City. Everybody comes back to the airport, I mean, to the hotel. And then we had dinner plans a couple hours later at Jake's restaurant.
Yeah, it's a great place.
And so I said to everybody, hey, I'm going to go to the airport and meet Kevin. Um, I met you. You made it there, Kevin. You made it. You missed, about 24 hours of the trip. That was it.
Right.
You made it. And I said, and then I bring you back to the hotel. And I said, so in about 45 minutes, we leave for dinner.
Yeah.
So you probably like in any other circumstances would have probably just like needed a nap or whatever.
Right.
And then we go to Jake's, and I
Hmm.
presented Kevin with an award. I didn't have time to actually make a plaque, so instead I think something he probably preferred more. I gave him a bottle of Zacapa,
Yes.
and I named the award the Trevor S. Eaton Award for Persistence. I came up with that because of the story I just told you about Kevin's
Yes.
persistence only 6 months earlier, or Trevor's persistence, and Kevin was emblematic of he got there, 24 hours. And it's funny, a few days later, Kevin, we're at Lake Atitlan, and first of all, you were comparing it to Lake Como, saying it was even better than Lake Como, but you were reflecting. I remember you saying something to me like, that whole first day, I missed that whole first day. It's one of those things where you almost just decide not to even do the trip, but you went and did the trip, and you're like, just for this moment, sitting here looking at Lake
Yes.
Atitlan, you're like, just this moment alone was worth all of that persistence.
Dude,
It
you
was.
guys talking about food makes me think of both of you. It's the first time I ever got sick, really sick, traveling abroad, ever. First time I've ever had food poisoning was with Francisco.
Okay.
And man, did that hit me quick. I left a filet mignon on the table and I was gone. I had chicken soup in Guatemala and that put me out. Luckily, everyone else at the table did not get chicken soup except for one person, Jerome, who was also later put down. He was also out of it for the next day. And then with Kevin, another food story. Kevin convinced me that I needed to go to this restaurant in Buenos Aires. It was very, very good. 18 courses, and at that time the
Was this Buenos Aires or was this
this is Buenos Aires. This is
Bogota?
the Buenos Aires one. So
Okay.
there was a thing called a
Not the
blue dollar.
Bogota one.
Okay, there's a blue dollar, and you got basically your money was worth a lot more. Okay, when you were in Buenos Aires at
It's
this
called
time.
Aramburu.
So we got this 18-course dinner for I don't know what, $130
Yeah.
with wine and food or something. It was
Unbelievable.
crazy. It was one of the best restaurants in the world. You can see all their plaques on the wall as you enter. It was fabulous, fantastic experience. Really loved it. Fast forward, we are in Bogota, Colombia, on another one of your trips, Francisco. You were not there this night, but Kevin had convinced the entire group. After I had praised Kevin's decisions, his ability to pick restaurants. Kevin messages me, "Hey Brian, do you want to come to this restaurant? It's also one of the top restaurants in the world. It's a little more expensive, but it's like $350 a person.
Yeah.
But it's really good, and we should go." Well, I didn't even look it up. I was just like, okay, sure, let's do that again. So I do that, all right? Everyone else then sees that Kevin and I are going, right? So they're like, oh, well, we'll go too. So all these poor individuals, okay, are shelling out. All these people are shelling out $350 a pop, and I didn't mean poor financially. I meant poor as in like pity them, okay? And so we get there, and we soon realize that Kevin has signed us up for a restaurant that is serving bugs and guinea pigs and no, not filet mignon, not shrimp. No, sir. No. We're talking native food that you probably don't want to be eating. It looked pretty, but Kevin definitely tricked us into eating bugs and guinea pig that night.
And barbecue.
And so all of us would kind of like taste the food a little bit and go, oh God. And then some of us just couldn't bear to eat these bugs, right? We just couldn't do it. It just couldn't be done. So of course, Kevin, who must have thought this out, is at the other side of the table and everyone is passing him their food. So Kevin gets like 5 meals for the price of one.
Yes.
Yeah, he loved it. It was great for Kevin.
It was
He was like, oh yes, I will have more of this. So yeah, that's what Kevin did to us in Bogota.
I loved that restaurant, and the other person who loved it was Ben Newman. So between Ben and I, we were the only ones who actually enjoyed that restaurant.
Well, yeah, the rest of us were passing the food to you two to eat. Luckily, his wife was beside him to pass him his. And Kevin was, across the table from me, so I'm sliding it across the table going, well, I hope you enjoy this bug. Hope you enjoy this caterpillar, Kevin. Which he did, actually.
It did.
Kevin was really enjoying the caterpillars.
That is my favorite course in that meal was the barbecued cow udder. That was excellent.
The cow udder. The texture of that thing, I just couldn't do it, Kevin. I couldn't do it.
So anyway, the restaurant was called...
Kevin has me eating bugs and cow tits. Honestly. Bugs and cow tits. That's what Kevin does to me. And rodents.
So the restaurant is called Leo. It is, according to these restaurant lists, one of the top 20 restaurants in the world. The chef is this legend. I actually, right after that trip, I flew to Guatemala City for a couple of days to see a couple of people I knew, and who were Guatemalans. And we went to a restaurant there in Guatemala City, and I told them, I was just in Leo last week, and they had the most unbelievable reaction. The chefs came out from the restaurant because they wanted to ask all these questions about Leo. Leo is a famous restaurant. I mean, if you next time you're in Central America at a nice restaurant, tell them you went there, and the chefs will just come out and want to talk to you about it. So
Well,
that's
I
a
don't know if
word
they
to the
want to talk to
wise.
Brian about it,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah. Talk to me.
this was one of these where we had done a few nights in Bogota, and it was sort of Bogota was sort of the unofficial part of the Colombia trip,
Mhm.
and Medellin was the official. So I had plans to get to Medellin the day before the whole group got there. So this was the night in the middle where I went to, and Helen went the same day as well to
Mhm.
Medellin, and I was like, wow, I can't believe these guys are paying $350 for like I didn't even know what it was. Just like, wow, that must be like a really nice restaurant. Like 350. I don't know how good the food's got to be for me to spend $350 at a restaurant, right? Meanwhile, I'm seeing text and they're in the group chat and we're not getting any like specific details, but just I can't believe we're here for Bride and then I see tells me without telling me what it was, he just says, "Yeah, Francisco, I don't think you would have liked this one." For me, I don't actually eat seafood, so I was actually thinking, oh, maybe there's a lot of seafood on the menu or something, you know. Um, and then the next thing I see in the group chat is that post dinner, Brian goes to McDonald's.
Yes, I did.
And I have no context, by the way. All I'm seeing is he just went to a restaurant that was like a $350 restaurant,
Yeah.
and that wasn't enough food for him. He had to go to
Yep.
McDonald's afterwards. Now we
Yes, I
know
did.
why.
I did. I sent the whole group a picture afterwards. I said, all right, I just couldn't take it anymore. I broke down. I need a little bit more America in my life. So I went to McDonald's. Yeah,
It's
it was good.
amazing. Well,
It was good.
hey, Brian, I forgot on that passport story. One of the things that you and I were talking about a couple weeks ago, and I had no idea about. I literally was just saying to him, like we were talking about, I like never, I avoid renting any vehicles in any countries. Brian's like the opposite. He
Yeah.
loves renting a vehicle, driving around. I'll just pay money for a shuttle driver to take me somewhere and keep me off the roads in Guatemala and Argentina. Now, I did rent a vehicle. We rented vehicles in Argentina and Bariloche because we sort of needed to, and that was really beautiful driving around that. But the but anyway, but I was saying to Brian, and I was just thinking about this the other day about like, man, what? Like, I feel like we should have like two driver's licenses. Like one I could just like leave in my car. So if I ever get, and then one I just like kind of like an ID I need. So we started talking about getting a state ID in addition to a driver's
Yeah.
license, right? And then we're talking about passports. And he's like, "Tell me, I didn't know there's like a passport card,
Mhm.
and then there's the passport book, which we're all accustomed to. What are the purposes of each of those, and can you get both? And why would you need both?"
So you have the passport, which can be used anywhere, but the passport is bulky, and I find it risky to take it everywhere with me. So I leave it usually secure in my room. But you technically are supposed to have your passport on you at all times when you are traveling around a country. So, you could be venturing in a market or, there's pickpockets, there's all kinds of stuff. And the passport is like the last thing you want lost on a trip. So I usually leave that in my room. But I have had instances when, like might have been speeding in Ecuador and I was pulled over by the police and I had left my passport back at the, place where I was staying. I was staying at one of my friend's houses on the Pacific there, but I'd left it back there. And they were really upset about this. My Florida ID was not acceptable. So that was the moment that I determined I really needed to order one of those small passport cards. So there's a little card that you can get, which now I always carry with me. So whenever I'm traveling, I carry that in my wallet. So I always have that on me, and then I have my passport back in the hotel room, secure. So
And the
that's why
passport
I
card
recommend
is
it. Paying I don't know what, Kevin, $10 or something, $20,
They're not
what,
expensive.
25? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's some fee. And when you order your passport, you just add on that card. I really recommend you do that.
I actually went on the website like last week after we had this conversation, and I was trying to determine if I already have my passport that I've had for say 5 years. Can I get do I have to like do a whole new renewal? It looks like you don't, but I haven't done it yet, so I'm not speaking from 100% experience. But from what I was reading online, you can actually mail them back your passport, which means you don't have your passport right now. And as much as we
Right.
travel, that's,
The problem.
discomforting.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, you
And who
can't go
knows
a
how long
month
they're,
without a passport. That's a
yeah,
problem.
and then you mail it and then they blah, blah, and they mail it back to you with your passport card. It's more like they check it. but apparently there are you can make an appointment at one of those probably offices or even at a U.S. Postal Service, which I haven't tried, but maybe soon I'll make an appointment and I think they have somebody there that can verify you or something, and then they can then I don't know if you get it that day, but they can put in your application for the passport card. So something to think about, but also the next time you're doing a renewal, very easy to just do both at the same time. Um, that'd be cool. I think that'd be a great idea. So let's see. I wanted to add what other things are we leaving off the table here, guys, that we should be talking about with travel?
I think when you're looking at a country, the first thing you need to do when you're looking at visiting a country, you need to go to the Department of State website and look up the country and the travel advisories. Okay. The second thing you need to do is look at the
We're going to
CDC.
come back to that point in a minute.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not so sure about that, but go ahead.
Look at the CDC maps. Well, just to get a gist, they aren't always accurate at the State Department, but just look at it, just for your knowledge. Look at the CDC website as well for the vaccination recommendations. In a lot of these countries, you really should, and really if you travel a lot, you should just go ahead and preemptively get all your, vaccinations, yellow fever, etc., just to be ready for it. But also something you need to think about is malaria and having medicine on hand for malaria, medicine on hand for food poisoning, and just keeping that in your bag ahead of time, just in case, especially when you're going to some of these third world countries. It's highly recommended, especially malaria. Look at that malaria map. If you're going into an area that has malaria, you need to start your medication, right before you go on your trip, and you need to continue it during the trip and then after your trip. So that's something, vaccinations and medicines required for that area. If you just go ahead and get all your vaccinations, that's one less step you have to worry about. And then the other thing is we already talked about the credit card points. And then we talked about the passport and the necessity for the smaller one as well. Kevin, is there anything else?
Uh, Check to see if you need a visa to go to the country. I mean, I found that
Oh,
out
yeah,
very recently.
that's a good one.
Yeah, by
Yeah.
the way, especially right now, I mean, the world's changing very rapidly before our eyes, and
Yes.
all sorts of countries that didn't have visa requirements, like Brazil's kind of had one, didn't have one, now has one again for Americans. So I check it for
Right.
people from coming from the United States or wherever you're coming from if you're listening to this from somewhere else, because the reality is Americans from the United States are pretty lucky in that we probably have less restrictions for most places, whereas
Yeah.
so many people have so many restrictions coming
Right.
here, or even other places. Also, England is now, I don't know if it's the UK general or England, but they now have at least it's they're really just trying to make money, right? It's like 20, $30, something like that. And my understanding is even if you're connecting through like a London airport, you may need one. So especially if you're doing one of those self-transfer things,
Yeah.
but you might even need one anyway. I don't even have that figured out. So just check with the airline. Sometimes the airlines are really good at telling you. Sometimes they don't, right? And so, yeah, I think these are just things that you should consider before making any kind of travel plans. Also, that whole thing with checking your passport, making sure it's got at least 6 months,
Yes.
and making sure the country you're going to does that. Also, okay, so let's go back to the State Department here. Maybe the State Department's going to get a little reform. I'm hoping so. We see that happening every day in a lot of different areas. But one thing I've just noticed when I was living in Guatemala was just how the State Department, I think, is a little overkill on like telling you how dangerous places are,
Yeah.
and I just don't know what to trust anymore because I'm sitting there in Guatemala. I had been living there for like 6 weeks. I had a couple friends that wanted to come down, and then they're like, "Oh, my wife checked the State Department's website, and they said it's a level 4." And I was like, "What the hell's a level? I don't even know what a level 4 means." I went to the website, but I said, "Okay." So, and then I had somebody else, same thing, a few weeks later, and I was like, "What is up with this?" And then I'm like trying to compare it to like, okay, so they have Guatemala on the same level as like some of these, maybe really dangerous countries in the Middle East, like Yemen or something like that, right? So I'm like, okay, so this might be a little off here. This is not really sure. And then when you actually, they're very specific in Guatemala too. They start saying, and if you do go there, stay away from zone this and zone that. And I'm like, well, okay, some of them legitimately stay away from. But some of them, I'm like, the airport's in zone 13. Like, I didn't even tell you this is where the airport is. So if you're reading that and you've never been, and you're like, so I have to go into one of the most dangerous zones, apparently, according to the State Department. like just to land there and fly there. Like, why would I even go to a country like that, right? So I just think it's a little overkill. So do your research. Not every YouTube video is going to tell you the truth, but you can
Right.
start to see a pattern with people with some of their travel accounts and things like that. That where they've been, and also I just always say, doesn't matter where you are, if you think a country is totally safe, you just you take common sense precautions, right? Especially like by yourself at night, in a place where no one else is around, right? Things like that. I mean, these are the things I would actually say, and then add to that if you're probably a female or somebody who is maybe a little less capable of defending themselves, right? Don't be intoxicated by yourself walking down the street at night anywhere. Like it could be in Philadelphia or
Right.
it could be in
Yeah.
Miami, right? Just don't be stupid, kind of thing,
Common
right?
sense.
Yeah. Don't
Common
wear a
sense.
necklace of $100 bills around your neck. I mean,
Yeah.
these are just
I always tell people, Francisco, that Guatemala is probably the most underrated travel destination in this hemisphere.
yes, I agree.
It's
We've been saying
underrated.
that now for a number of years,
Yeah.
and just a couple months ago, the cover story of National Geographic is all about Guatemala, and it's funny. My friend Bob Rubin, who I think you guys know,
Mhm.
he sent me. He gets it. Like him and his wife like subscribe to it, and he's like, "I have it for you here when you want it." And he said, "I've just read through the entire thing. This is basically what you've been saying about every one of these places in
Yes.
Guatemala." Right? He's been there a bunch of times
Yeah.
with me as well. So anyway, yeah. But I think you're right. These places, I only went because one friend, my friend Kyle, like in 2019, was studying Spanish down there. And I never even thought about going to Guatemala, right? And then you go there, and then it starts opening up something else for you, maybe El Salvador. Brian, most recently you were in Honduras and Nicaragua.
Hmm.
You tell us a little bit about those experiences? I mean, because we could have a lot to say about those countries from the outside, but I've
Yeah.
really never been to either other than Roatan.
So I went to Roatan. I went to Tegucigalpa, the capital of Honduras. I went to San Pedro Sula, which, if you look online, they'll tell you it's a very dangerous, scary place to go, just as you were saying, Francisco. I did not feel any danger there. They had fantastic restaurants. No bugs, Kevin. I didn't see any bugs. I didn't see any, there's no guinea pig, no rodents.
Such a
So
disappointment.
maybe it's not your type of restaurant. Maybe this was not your style. But they were very good restaurants, very nice restaurants. Um, and I also went to Copan, the Maya ruins of Copan. And those were actually some of the better ruins that I've been to. I've been to a lot of Maya ruins, and including the lost city of Mirador in Guatemala, the very north of Guatemala, that you can only get to via helicopter or a 3-day hike through the jungle. Obviously, I opted for the helicopter because, as I mentioned before, I don't go without showers. So that's just not something I do unless I'm trapped in between a border and Africa. And um, Copan was fantastic, beautiful little town. The only downside to Copan is it's right on, very north of Honduras, right on the border between Guatemala. The only way to get there is a 4-hour drive from San Pedro Sula or a 5-hour drive from Guatemala City, which could be made into a 7-hour drive because of the border, right? You never know.
Or traffic or something,
Some
right?
days
Or
a
construction.
border situation, there could be a line, and it could take you hours. You never know. So I opted for the San Pedro Sula 4-hour route.
Right.
The roads in some of these countries aren't the best,
Right.
but I got there and toured the ruins. They actually have tunnels at Copan, which I found fantastic. There are beautiful tunnels, all kinds of sculptures and stuff within these tunnels. I got to go into tunnels that were in the pyramids. Very cool. Under
That's
them,
awesome.
in them, very cool. Highly recommend Copan. And while you're there, another little treat is that the scarlet macaw, which is the national bird of Honduras, is everywhere, flying all over. So that's really cool. I do recommend, Roatan is a beautiful island off the coast of Honduras. I do recommend Honduras, especially San Pedro Sula, Roatan, and Copan. Those are fantastic. I went to Nicaragua. I did Managua and Granada. Managua is a capital city. It is a big city, but due to the political situation there and the government, it's a bit awkward. You know, so it's just not quite as vibrant as you would think for Latin America. Latin America is generally extraordinarily vibrant. That's part of the thing that you love about it. You could tell that they certainly are a lot poorer than the other countries in Nicaragua. Um, they aren't really all that free. You can say things, but if you do, you might disappear.
Hmm.
And then you have Granada, which is beautiful, fantastic. It's like Antigua, Guatemala, and Granada is like that, but not as large and not as well kept. But it really is a beautiful colonial city, and it's the old capital of of Nicaragua. So that was my experience there. I mean, it was a beautiful place, a beautiful country, wonderful people. The people there are fantastic. Actually, in all of these countries, I must say, Latinos generally are extraordinarily welcoming, wonderful, friendly people. They really try to help you. If you're ever thinking about going to, be it Ecuador, Peru, Colombia, wherever you're thinking about going, Latinos in general are extraordinarily friendly and helpful and nice, good people. And they're vibrant. They love life. They love music. They love food. So it's almost a guaranteed good time.
Right.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. I mean, that's why I just continue to keep going back to many Latin American destinations.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're really right. I look at, I say this about Guatemala particularly because I spent more time there. I say they're the most hospitable people in the world, but you could really extend that out to most places in Latin America.
Yeah.
And they're very family oriented people. I mean, you know, I witnessed this in Guatemala, and I understand it in a lot of Latin American countries. Every Sunday, it doesn't matter. You get together with all of your family. Like you're talking, not your parents, your kids, your cousins, your brothers and sisters. They all come together usually for like a lunch or afternoon barbecue or like dinner, something
Don't
like that.
forget
It's like
Abuelo and Abuela.
yeah, 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 exactly. No, everybody
Yeah.
everybody is there, and it's almost it's just an unspoken thing. It's just a thing that it's just a matter of where is it going to be at Abuelo's house, or is it going to be at mom's house, or is it going to be at the cousin's house, or like whatever. It's just a matter of like where it is going to be this Sunday, but it's just a guarantee. And so I think it just shows like how much they're so connected to their family, and it's like the center of all life in those Latin American countries. Anyway, and I think that just extends to their hospitality to everybody else, welcoming them in. Like you said, there, like the vibrancy, the music, the food, like everything's
The
just
coffee.
what it is. Oh yeah. Oh, that's actually what it is too.
Yes.
It's the coffee.
Yeah.
Keeps everybody awake, especially down in Argentina where Kevin loves to go. But Kevin, you've been to a lot of countries. I don't know. Maybe I should just ask you. You did reference and talk about your time in Hong Kong, not South Korea at this time around. But do you want to enliven us here with a recent travel experience?
Just I had to book a new flight. Uh, I showed up at the airport in Dubai and ended up flying to a completely different country than I was expecting. I was in Japan for 10 days during the cherry blossom season. Have you been there, Brian?
I'm not. No, but I want to do that cherry blossom
Japan
that
is
season.
amazing. I was blown away by it. I know some Americans are into anime and manga and things like that. I've never really been that interested, so I don't have that background. But I always wanted to go to Japan just to see how it was. It's amazing. It's an astonishing country. I want to go back for a month and see a lot more. The quality of the sushi and the seafood there is just out of this world. There's nothing like it here in Florida.
Yeah, I've never been to Japan, but every single person I talk to loves it.
Yeah,
And see, this is why we can't rack up those numbers, Kevin, because we keep going back. We go
exactly.
get a taste of a country and we go, oh,
Right.
there's a lot of things there I didn't know about, but I learned more and I want to go see it. So then you
Exactly.
got to go back. Yeah.
Exactly. Tokyo is just an unbelievable city. There's so much to do. I mean, I could easily stay there. I'm sure all of us, we could stay there for a month and only scratched the surface because it's a huge city and everything you could possibly want to do there is there. I went to a Japanese baseball game. That was amazing. I love that.
Somebody the other day was just telling me about Japan, and Kevin, maybe you can see if you think you would confirm a story like this. Well,
Okay.
it wasn't an actual story, but this is what they
Right.
said. In Japan, the people are so honest and trustworthy. You could drop your wallet on the subway, and I said, "Oh, what? They would find you and return it?" They said, maybe they turn it in, but they said more likely somebody would take the wallet and they'd put it in like a plastic bag or something, and they tape it on the wall, or they'd put it somewhere you would see it because you're going to come back for something some story like that. I started laughing, and they said, "Yeah, just like nobody there. They're not looking to mug you. In fact, if they see the whole point was if they see your wallet even drop out, they would want to make sure you got it back."
Exactly.
Yeah,
It's
That's a
such
that's a great quality.
Yeah, it's
yeah,
such a polite culture. I went, I normally I try to avoid going Western chain restaurants when I'm in a foreign country. But I was really sleepy one morning and I needed coffee, and I saw Starbucks, so I went to the Starbucks and ordered coffee. And when I say I try to avoid chain restaurants, everyone else in the Starbucks, and it was a big Starbucks, was clearly Japanese, so it wasn't like it was a lot of tourists there. It was I walked in and got my coffee, and the barista made it, and then she bowed at me when she gave me the coffee. I'm like, wow. I mean, that's
One thing I think you're leaving out, Kevin. I went to Taiwan
uh-huh.
earlier this year, and there's a lot of similarities between Taiwan and
Right.
Japan. But I was there. One of the things that I found impressive is how polite, in a quiet way, everyone is. They're very quiet. You don't have people playing their phone out loud
No.
in the airport. You don't have people playing their phone, talking on
Uh-huh.
FaceTime, being obnoxious. That does not happen in Taiwan on the train, in
No.
public places, restaurants, airports. They are not obnoxious, and so I used to always get on to people that travel with me about, when they get on FaceTime in public,
Hmm.
somewhere in a crowded airport, and everybody can hear their conversation. I remind them how rude that is.
Yeah.
And no one wants to hear them talking to their girlfriend or
Right.
their, clients or whoever, like right there, in front of everybody. No one wants to hear that. They also don't want to hear your YouTube videos or
Right.
your Instagram reels. They don't want to hear it. Put it on silent. Put ear pods in. Do something, but don't play it out loud because that's
Uh-huh.
rude. And it's especially rude in Asia
Oh
because
yes.
they do not do it.
No.
You will have a train car full of 100 people. Silence.
Yes. Oh yes.
They don't even speak loudly. They speak quietly to each other. There's no loud
Yes.
conversations. And I found that wonderful, amazing.
Yes.
It was fantastic.
Even when I say
that's
Tokyo is a big, huge city, it's way quieter than New York or London or Paris. It's yeah.
Yeah.
mm,
But like I said, yeah, that's my travel advice: is go to Japan. It's just astonishing right now. The currency exchange is really good for the dollar. Go to Japan. It's unbelievable. The quality of the food is fantastic. It's just yeah. That's what I want people listening to this to take away. Go to Japan.
that's awesome. Well, I usually say go to Latin America, go to Israel.
Uh,
Those are two of my favorite places. And we'll do it Israel probably next year again.
oh,
I don't
that's
know.
great. I mean,
Yeah, so
I've
we'll
never
see.
been. I've always wanted to go.
Oh, especially to people who've never been. I mean, I went in 2018, and it was amazing. Really, really amazing. And it's funny. I was just listening to somebody the other day. I think it was sort of in these conversations about, I don't know, with the Pope or something. But somebody was on TV and they were talking about going to Jerusalem for the first
Hmm.
time, and they said, and by the way, I had the same experience when I was there in 2018. There's just so much to see, and like we were around the country. We were up at Sea of Galilee. We were at the Mount of Beatitudes. We went to the border with Syria. Basically, we went down to we were in Bethlehem for half a day, but Jerusalem we were there for like 4 days, and just the amount of history, the layers of history, in just that one city is just immense. And I'm the kind of person that's like, man, I fly 13 hours or whatever. It was like a 10-hour flight or something from
Yeah.
New York, I think. And I'm like, just to see, like when I go, I want to see as much as I can. I'm like, I always kind of started to, especially when I go somewhere that far, I always kind of think to myself, this may be my only trip here, and it very well may. It may be my only trip there, and so I kind of want to like make sure I don't miss something, right? I'm there. We were there 9 or 10 days, but there's just not enough time to see everything there. So there was one day, and I remember we were in Jerusalem, and this actually wasn't part of our official itinerary, but there was an area called the City of David, and you could go there, and they've even got some like cool like tunnels or something, special tour, whatever. But you could do like part of it or do the whole thing, whatever. And there was 2 days where the guide told us, hey, we got like 3 or 4 hours of free time on this day and a couple hours of free time on this day. So if you want to do that, do it on one of those 2 days. And the first day when we had that free time, it was already we were like 6 days into the trip or
Right.
something, and I was getting tired, and it was August and it was hot, and instead of doing that, I went and did something else, and then I was like, I just need to chill at the hotel for like an hour. I just need a nap or something,
Right.
because I'm not gonna be able to keep going all evening. And I said I'll do the City of David thing tomorrow. And then the next day came, and it was our last day in Jerusalem, and it was like middle of the afternoon. I kind of hit that wall, man. I hit that
Yeah.
wall where I was like, I'm just not going to enjoy this, and I'm not going to enjoy the next couple days of the trip if I don't get like a break. And it was at that moment that I said to myself, this will not be my only trip to Israel. There's just too much to see here to make this a once in a lifetime thing. But
Right.
in my mind, Israel is in a place where there's a lot of danger around it, right?
Hmm.
And so you just never know. There's many years where Israel's been sort of off the map to travel to, at least if you don't want to potentially experience a war or something, right? And right now it's a little risky. So that's why I was kind of putting that in my mind a little bit too. But yeah, at that point I was just like, still, Francisco, you'll be back.
Well, you got to take your naps so that fun Cisco can come out.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So, Brian,
Yeah.
have you been to Israel?
I'm not.
No.
I'd like to go, but it seems like every time I think about going, there's a new, threat to Israel. Some new, problem with missiles or
New
whatever.
war.
And so I just I've not done it yet. Seems like whenever I'm making plans, I just tend to go elsewhere because of that issue.
Yeah, same here. That's happened to me a few times. 2018 when I was invited to go with the group that I went with, I was like, okay, like seems like a perfect time right now for Israel. And by the way, it
Right.
was in August, and I think I was invited. I was probably invited around March or April.
Hmm.
Um, and actually, that April was when we moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem.
Okay.
Right.
Right.
And so the U.S. was, you know, very, I mean, it was a moment I think where every just and there hadn't been any attacks. I remember in the early 2000s there was a lot of like bus bombings and things like that, like
Hmm.
terrorist, at cafes and things like that. That had gone away for like 15 years at this point. At
Right.
that point. So, and part of it was because they built that security fence, that wall. It's a wall.
Hmm.
They can call it a fence all they want. I
The
visited
wall.
it. It
Yeah.
was
We
so
love the
cool.
wall. Love the
Well,
walls.
Build the
what's
wall.
so cool is this group took us to the wall, and we got to hear uh, the story of building it from the general who built it.
Yeah.
Like he guided us. It was so cool. But anyway, this was the story. I mean, this is how they stopped it, right? This is how they stopped all the people coming. And but anyway, now you have a little different situation with Hamas and everything. We don't have to go down that rabbit hole. But yeah, just as we're talking here, is what about a week or so ago that there was like the Houthis attack, sent like a little missile or something, a rocket or something that actually was really close to the airport in Tel Aviv, like right there. Like you could actually, if you were in the airport, you heard the explosion because they actually had some guy on video, and I was like, "Now that's alarming," because you don't
Yeah.
want to be on a plane that's trying to land or take off,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden you get hit with a missile. I mean,
I
you're done.
I have the same thoughts about Ukraine or some of the countries that are near that area. There have been jets shot down over
Hmm.
Ukraine by Russia. So I mean like civilian jets.
Yes.
So that is something that's concerning. I'm supposed to go to Georgia next week. And in my mind, I'm going, well, I wonder what route they're taking. Is it going to
Yeah.
be over Israel or over Ukraine? I don't know. Which way am I? right? I'm always considering that. Well, where is this plane going?
You're going to the Republic of Georgia?
Yeah, the Republic of Georgia. Yes.
That's amazing. I went there in
Yeah.
2022. You will love it.
I know you
Love
told
it.
me that I should go there, and
Okay,
now
great.
I'm gonna. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, Brian, I've had the same thought. I'll be going to Belgrade, Serbia, but I'll be coming from Madrid at that point, so I think it's just probably right over
Yeah, you're
Italy,
good. You're
boom,
good.
right
Yeah.
there. Yeah,
Yeah.
so like
You
you kind
fly over
of
the
kind of look
safe
into it.
countries, right?
Yeah, but look, you never know. It's anything can happen anywhere in the world.
Yes.
And I think that you can get into a car accident. Anything can happen. So you can't let that fear dominate. If you really want to go
Yeah.
someplace, obviously you want to take precautions.
Right.
Going to Ukraine right now, I don't think is wise, but I know people that have gone there. And you traveled with Dan Weinberg on the first trip,
Hmm.
our YouTube travel guy. I think it's been 2 years ago now, a year or two. He went to Ukraine, and my friend Joe Lindsley, who I had on this podcast, he's been living in Ukraine for like 5 years, and he's been reporting from there every day, and he's been living there. And once Dan told me he was going there, I said, okay, I'm going to connect you with Joe. I don't advise you go there, but now that you're going, I guess I'll connect you with Joe if you like, and he got to learn about that. But yeah, I will say that him and another friend have been there, and they told me the first few days that you're there, and they were like mostly in the western part of the country most of the time. Like
Hmm.
even it's alarming the first time you hear an air siren. It's just I think this is it, and there may not even be anything coming. But anyway, yeah. So look, going to a place like that, I think obviously, not advisable for most of the world. But most places in the world are pretty good. People are just like us in terms of things they like to do, family, friends, whatever. They probably even watch a lot of the same things we watch.
Yes.
But
Hmm.
I do want to say one thing before I wrap this podcast up. And I almost meant to say this at the beginning. Uh, I saw something on Instagram, like some of these little reels that you see that we share with each other about people traveling, this and that. And it said less than 1% of the world's population right now, there's over 8 billion people on this planet, less than 1% of them have been to more than 20 countries. Less than 1%. I've been to 34. Brian was out 38 or so, right? Kevin's at 40 something.
Hmm.
So I was like, so what does it mean to be at 34 or 40? I mean, it must be like 0.2%, right?
Yeah.
So guys, either way, we're in the top 1%. That's all I
We
gotta tell
are
you. We're the
we are the
1%.
1%, right?
Yeah, yeah. And we're going to continue. We're going to continue going, traveling more countries, and that's going to be fun. So we'll be in the 0.5%. We'll be in the 0.2%.
Yeah.
Who knows? There is an extremely low number of people. This is not on my list because I don't think there's time to do it. But there's like 193 or so recognized countries in the world, give or take, and there's like extremely low. Like I think it's only like a couple hundred people or something that have even done it
Been
all,
to
like
all of
checked
them.
every list.
Yes.
I think we're going to see a lot more people reach that soon. But still, that's an extremely low number of people. There might be more people that have been to space by now.
Right. No,
you
yeah.
know,
I'm working on
than
it.
that.
I'm working on it.
Yeah,
I,
space.
one of my pieces of advice I always tell my friends and people I run into is a lot of people say they're gonna do something. My father always would tell me, don't be a gonna person. Don't say you're gonna do it. Do it. Go do it. Don't be a gonna person. Go do it. Get it done. You never know how long you're going to live. You never know what tomorrow will hold.
Right.
And you never know if the region that you want to visit could be unstable in the future. So if you want to go somewhere, make a plan, save up some money, be smart with travel points, and go see it. Go see the world. You only live once.
Right.
And travel is truly the best education.
So Brian, are you going to do it? Are you going to go to 193 or whatever?
I'm going to try to get as close as I can.
There we go. I don't know. I don't know. I was thinking about that one day. I was like, so I do have a friend, my friend Jess Gonzalez. He lives in Arizona. This guy, I just checked with him in maybe a month ago. I got to get him on the podcast here. He's getting close. He's like 8 countries away or something.
Wow.
And I
Wow.
remember, I
Great.
remember in I want to say it was around 2019. He was coming through Orlando. We got together, and I was asking him. And at that point, I mean, he was at like 130 countries or something. And he's a couple years older than me, right? And so I asked him like, so how many countries are there? Like I was like, what's the count? He's like, well, it's like 193 if you look at the UN list. But he at that point he told me, he goes, there's probably like 10 I'll probably never get to,
Hmm.
like North Korea. And at that point he actually said like Saudi Arabia. I was like, what do you mean? You haven't been to Saudi Arabia? And he's like, no, because at that point it was really difficult. Now it's opening up a lot more. And actually, since we had that conversation 6 years ago, I saw like 2 years ago he made it to Saudi Arabia or something. So um, he's like, yeah, no, at that point, only if you were like government or had business could you get into Saudi Arabia or something. It was like very, very limited. But anyway, but who knows? He's getting so close now. But boy, can you imagine visiting North Korea?
I
It's
would. I have a friend of mine who wants to do karaoke in every country, so he has a particular goal. And the North Korean government in the past, I don't know if they still do this, but they did pre-COVID. They sponsor karaoke tours for Westerners, where you can visit Pyongyang and a couple of other North Korean cities and go to karaoke bars every night and do karaoke in North Korea. And he did this tour. So he's
that's amazing. So first of all, you're not just going to North Korea, you're doing karaoke. At first, I was like, there's no way they're letting him do karaoke in North Korea. But now you're saying they actually have a program
yes,
for people to come and do karaoke.
yes.
So you sing something like "Born Free" by Kid Rock, or I don't know. But
I
anyway,
don't know. Apparently, they had a lot of Western music there, and karaoke is very popular in East Asian culture to begin with. It's a big way of doing business there. If you want to have a client meeting, even at very high levels, it will often be at special karaoke bars where you will rent out a room or a suite of rooms that's catered with food and alcohol, and there'll be servers there. But that's a very common way of doing business. Is you'll just rent out a karaoke room and have 10 or 15 people there whom you're trying to establish connections with, and you'll just sing karaoke all night.
that's
Well,
hilarious.
they
Well,
probably
guys,
won't let like Patria Vida. That's probably not on the song
yeah,
list.
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
Well, this has been
I was at one of those one time, and I know other people who do this more regularly. They said obviously they're Chinese or Japanese music or Korean pop or whatever, but there's also just a lot of Western music. I mean, if you want to karaoke to Britney Spears or Taylor Swift or the Police or whatever, that's an option. And even in mainland China, I mean, there aren't really. I mean, maybe there are a few songs that are like, you know, censored because of the lyrics. But most Western music that you think of, if you want to sing to whatever Leonard Skinner or the Police, that's an option in mainland China. I mean, it's not, you're not being stopped from doing that.
sure, sure. Well, guys, this has been a lot of fun. One of the things I just was remembering from my friend Jesse Escalzi, he said he didn't want to just go and check every box in every country. He
Yeah.
wanted to do something unique or something in every country, do something interesting, like maybe he wanted to go skydiving somewhere. He wanted to whatever,
Or
do something
karaoke.
interesting and unique. Yeah, or karaoke. No, I mean like just do something like that wasn't just literally to go to the country and have lunch or something, right? It was like
Right.
to do something. And I think kind of to where we started this conversation. I think Brian mentioning how we like, even though we've done 34 to 40 countries, whatever, we probably could have done more if we were just checking the boxes. But
Exactly.
we've all gone to some of those countries multiple times,
Multiple
Yes.
times. Yeah.
and we've gone back and done new things or reconnected with friends we made there, things like that. So I think it's just great to enjoy the travel. Don't just look at it as checking boxes.
Right.
Just go out and look at it as new experiences that you're going to have, even if you're revisiting final places. Wanted to give you guys, if you have any last words here for our conversation, and then we'll say goodbye.
Go ahead, Brian.
Well, as I said earlier, don't overthink it. Don't say you're going to do it. Actually do it. Go do it. Traveling is the best education. You can read a book, but it is no match for traveling and actually being there and seeing the people, seeing the
Right.
culture, tasting the food, drinking the wine. You've really you really do not understand a country until you've been there and seen it and understand kind of how they live and how they party and what
Yes.
they eat. Yeah, just don't take Kevin's recommendations on what to eat in these countries, but maybe check with me first.
That and I'll respond to that like be adventurous, do things you wouldn't do otherwise. As Brian himself just said, you only live once, and I
Eat
know
those
people
bugs.
like that barbecued cow
I tried
udder.
them.
But now you know you don't like barbecued cow udder.
Yeah, that's true.
So I mean,
Well,
That
to just
that brings
before.
back like a nightmarish flashback of that texture. Oh,
But what's great is I think that some of the maybe bad experience you might have had, like in that moment, sitting between those borders, Brian, it was probably nightmarish in the moment, but it becomes a story you have for the rest of
right.
your life,
Yes.
including
Yeah,
on a podcast.
I'm
And
going to write a book. It's going to be Borders and Udders.
there we go, there we go.
And so
And
you
just
have more memories of that meal than a lot of other meals you've had.
Well, that's true.
yeah, and that meal, yeah. And just to pick up on what you said, Brian, before, I had a friend, I have a friend, Andrew, who said many years ago, best way to travel is eat the food, meaning the local food, drink their. He says, eat their food, drink their beer, and talk to the people. That was kind of his main motto. I always try to
Great
incorporate
advice.
that in everything when I think about the travel experiences. And then the other thing is when you were saying about doing. What comes to my mind is, and this probably happens to you guys too. People say, "How do you have the time to travel so much?" Wow, I wish I could travel like you. I wish I could travel. Period. Not even just like you, but I wish I could travel. I mean, Brian, it's that mindset that you have right there. I tell people, I said, "Well, look, honestly, travel may not be an actual priority for those people. Like they might like the idea, they see a pretty picture on Facebook. Oh, I wish I could be there on the coast of Italy or something. But I say, travel is like a priority for me. I think it's a priority for you guys. It's like it's something we think about all the time.
Yeah.
Like, and then that if it's a priority for you in terms of time, it's also a priority for you in terms of budget. I have the same car I've had for actually going to be 18 years
Yeah.
old. I bought it
Yeah.
new.
It's so
I
cool.
can have a new car for every 5 years, like a lot of people do, but I'd rather not have a car payment.
Yes.
And eventually one day I will have to, right? But it
Right.
won't last forever. But at least it's got me so long that I'd rather use that money to travel. And
Well,
you could shift this around in so many different budgets.
and there's another way to look at it. If you live, let's just, for example, let's say you live in Fort Lauderdale or near Fort Lauderdale, somewhere. You could say, "Well, I don't really have time." Well, yeah, but do you have the weekends off? Yes. Do you have a day off somewhere? Yes. Was there a holiday coming up where there's a Monday off? Yes. Okay. Take your Friday off, take your Monday off, then go to a travel website like Google, right? Where you can see all the flights. Just type in, okay, Fort Lauderdale to this city, leaving on Thursday night, coming back on Monday, and see what the flight options are. Where does it go? Can you get to Guatemala City and back that weekend? What's the price? Well, can you get to Nicaragua that weekend and back? What's the price? Can you get to Buenos Aires that weekend and back? What's the price? Or are there any travel deals? You just do that research and look, you might find a deal. I was looking the other day. There are flights to Guatemala City out of Fort Lauderdale for $37 one way on Spirit. Anyone can do that.
Excuse
And
me,
you
guys.
get to
That's
these
time to end the
countries,
podcast
especially
and
in
book a
Latin
flight.
America, and the hotels are also cheap,
Yeah.
right? So it's like $37. And you're going to spend that going to dinner in Fort Lauderdale. So why not go to, Guatemala where, the hotels are cheap and the food's cheap.
Yeah.
You can
I
do
agree.
it if you want to do it. Just look at the options and then pick one of the countries where it works with your schedule and go.
Absolutely. Well, look, you guys have offered tons of advice, tons of stories and experiences here. We could do a whole series here. We could keep going.
Yes.
But anyway, I'm going to just say thank you guys for your time. And if people want to connect with you in any way, is there any place we should send them?
On most social medias, it's at Brian H. Graham.
Okay.
I'm on Facebook and Instagram at Kevin in Florida.
Kevin in Florida. All right. So you can find these guys, Brian H. Graham, Kevin in Florida, on most of your social medias. Or feel free to reply to me. We'll put some stuff in the show notes here. Share this with people. And also, if you want to travel with Brian and Kevin and me, go to fearlessjourneys.org because
Yes.
they're on a lot of my trips. So you'll find, and you can tell we have a lot of fun. That's the best thing. We always think about the destination. We always think about the story. I want to go to Colombia for this, or I want to go. but the most fun thing is just the people you meet and travel with along the way. You have all these great stories to share, and I think we built some great friendships and some great
Yes.
stories over the years. So,
Yeah.
and the best is yet to come, as I always like to say.
Absolutely.
All right,
Ready
guys,
for our
thanks
next
so
fearless
much.
journey.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks,
So
everyone.
everybody go to fearlessjourneys.org, apply to join Fearless Journeys 2.0 now, and we're actually going to stop advertising these. Well, they've stopped advertising these trips publicly. It's just going to be to the members. The members are going to now source the trips for us, in terms of where we want to go. I'll do all the planning and all the work still, obviously, but to organize everything for everybody. But you got to join Fearless Journeys 2.0 to learn about these trips. So
Okay.
go there at fearlessjourneys.org and apply. And I want to thank you guys for being travel agents of innovation. How about that? We'll talk to you soon, guys. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.